As industries worldwide tackle the digital revolution, industrial software has become the backbone of transformation. At the center of this evolution, or you might say revolution, is AVEVA, a global leader in industrial intelligence. We're here at the annual gathering in Davos to collect insights and ideas from CEOs from around the world. And today, it's the AVEVA team. CEO Kasper Hertzberg, Lisa Wee, Chief Sustainability Officer, and Arthi Garg, Chief Technologist. Arthi and Lisa, great to see you. Welcome to Davos. And welcome too to Kasper, joining us from London. Thanks all of you for being here. First of all, Kasper, tell us a bit about how AVEVA sees the balance between commercial realities and the need for decarbonisation.
Well, first to say is that, yes, the things are less stable and less predictable than they were, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago. Clearly, there is more uncertainty. There are a lot of additional geopolitical tensions. So all of that is true. At the same time, these tensions create new opportunities. For example, in supply chains that get reconfigured. And as a matter of fact, AVEVA hasn't stopped growing. I mean, we continue to grow. And I would say that our value proposition, which is on the one hand, of course, around efficiency, around what AI can do for the industrial sector, and on the other hand, decarbonization or sustainability, are very welcome by our customers and continue to give us very, very good growth.
Arthi, how are all these new technologies helping drive decarbonisation across the industries today?
So we think a lot about, specifically the use of digital technologies, whether that's sort of industrial data, industrial Internet of Things, and AI, and even robotics and automation built on top of that as being foundational to our ability to really think about, decarbonizing some of the most energy-intensive industries, many of which we work with. And, the way that we approach this problem is to think about, first, how much information can we collect about the carbon intensity of processes of the electric grid, and leveraging those data, we can leverage things like AI and figure out how to operate these things more efficiently. And so, for example, we have some customers we have one customer called CSL Group that is a large shipping company, and they've leveraged our data they've collected in our systems about their operations and used that information to optimize their operations. So they've achieved 29% reduction in the carbon intensity of their shipping operations, allowing them to really lower their carbon impact. And that's the type of thing that we see advanced technologies, digital technologies enabling.
I mean, very briefly, is it that simple? You run all their data through an algorithm or something and it comes out cheaper and more efficient?
I wish it were that simple, but in the end, maybe it's that simple to think about conceptually. The challenge is often there's a lot of different types of data that you need to bring to bear on any type of industrial problem. So that whether that be some of the kind of operational data that might be just actually logistics, plus actual telemetry coming from digital assets, bringing all of those together in a way that you can combine them with the context of whatever the industrial operation is that you're operating in. So it could be a power plant, and then I need to know how these assets work together, for example. And once you have that context, once you have those data, well integrated with each other, then it's usually still not just one algorithm. Unfortunately, it's often many algorithms, and then figuring out which is the right one and which is the right place to optimize to really get the best.
Lisa, are industries embracing the idea of net zero at all?
Well, we're seeing a lot of changes, and I'd say disruption, especially coming from energy and manufacturing sectors that are really having to rethink because of customer expectations, because of supply chains, because of trade policies, because of new energy sources. And that combined with the technology opportunity that Arti spoke about is very exciting. We have the opportunity to use AI to leverage automation to help these industries really decarbonize and really become more sustainable. And I know there's a lot of excitement about AI. Sometimes we have the big numbers that are thrown out out there. It's a 5 trillion economic growth opportunity. If we actually use it and adopt it, that's as much growth as adding a new Japanese-sized economy to the world, right? And the good news there that I hope more people realize is that we've made more progress on decoupling economic growth and emissions since we've had the Paris Agreement. Maybe one statistic that I'll throw out there as a proof point to this, 92% of GDP is in countries and 89% of emissions are in countries that have decoupled economic growth from carbon emissions. And so that is a very positive trend. So if we can use digital technologies, I think, especially across these industries, we're going to continue to see that progress.
Back to Casper then, in London, AVEVA often talks about the power of collaboration between industry, government and technology leaders. Are you seeing it? Is it happening?
Well, the bigger the challenge, the more important it is that you collaborate, that you work with others, whether in your own industry, whether with competitors, whether with the public sector, and that you work together to overcome this challenge, right? And in this case, I think that the combination of the rapidly advancing climate change, on the one hand, we can't deny it, it's happening to us, right now. And on the other hand, the need, of course, to continue to grow, to do well in a more difficult world, right, demands really that you collaborate. For example, as we do here at WEF, with many of our partners in both the public sector and in the private sector, or whether it is initiatives like the Sustainable Markets Initiative out of the UK. These are fantastic forums to come together and understand how we really overcome some of the challenges we frankly all face.
So Arti, AI should be this golden opportunity to tackle issues like sustainability. Not everyone is optimistic. What's your view?
So I think there are real questions we need to answer about the carbon impact of AI itself, but at the same time, there is a lot of opportunity to leverage AI in other ways to really reduce the environmental impacts and carbon impacts of industrial processes. So I already kind of alluded a little bit to the electric grid. Managing the electric grid in today's era of renewables that can be intermittent in their ability to generate, much more distributed, it's a more complicated task because you've got a lot of different sources coming onto the electric grid. We're actually working with Idaho National Lab to test how can you leverage AI models in the electric grid and use that in a way that's secure and reliable, because obviously grids need to work and they need to be secure. So that's just one example. Other examples, we have a customer, for example, Amcor, that does sustainable packaging. They have 23 factories around the world. They've used individual SCADA systems to operate each of those factories. But actually by combining the data from each of those factories, they were able to achieve further reductions and efficiencies in their processes, and they leveraged our software to do so.
Lisa, what about the kind of passive improvements that organizations and companies can make? How does AVEVA help with that?
Well, I think another example that we haven't spoken about is really the way that we're finding new ways to make energy. So we have a customer, London Energy, that takes waste and uses that to make power and heat for tens of thousands homes in the UK, in the London area. And really what was happening before is that all of their data, as they moved towards trying to create a more circular business model, was sitting in silos. And so even though it's a circular process, they still need to think about how they decarbonize that. And by using AVEVA System Platform, they could bring all the information into one place, and they could identify opportunities where they actually reduced energy consumption by 20% at each of their sites. And in the process, they also saved about £200,000 a year. So significant economic savings, but environmental savings that were also significant.
So Lisa, as companies come under more pressure, do you find they're stampeding towards you to try and get answers and help from you to answer the decarbonised questions they simply can't work out for themselves?
Well, I think they're really recognizing that these are very complex times and that technology can really help them. and especially digital twin technologies. So if you think about digital twin as a replica of a process, we have customers like Covestro, for example, in the chemical space. They're trying to create bio-based plastics. They need to do that in a way that is profitable, but also meets some very high standards. They actually need to be able to experiment, and they're able to do that with our digital twin technologies and understand how they can develop new chemistries that will have the right properties, but to do that at a way that is at the right price point. And so when you have these digital twin technologies, you're able to experiment and do so much more that accelerates the cycles of innovation. I think we all know we're living in times where all companies need to move fast.
I'd like to jump in there a little bit and pull a little bit further on the digital twin thread, or sometimes even just the digital thread, which is that having, that core capability, that core industrial twin, which is really sits at the heart of a lot of our offerings at AVEVA. What that allows our customers to do is optimize whatever it is that they're doing, optimize their processes, optimize their operations. And when you do that, you usually find yourself running more energy efficiently. And so in a way, often they're coming to us not necessarily for a decarbonization specific goal, but the result that they get is also decarbonization and a reduction in their carbon footprint, and often their broader environmental footprint as well.
Well, our final question to Casper then. In London, AVEVA finds itself at the front of all these extraordinary challenges. Are you confident that you can carry out the missions you set for yourselves?
Well, I mean, if you don't innovate, usually you cease to be around. So I think innovation is a constant, irrespective of whether times are easy or difficult, right? You always need to come up with new ways of doing things, new products, leveraging new opportunities, new technologies. All of that is innovation, and in the end, those that do it the best leapfrog the others and do well. And I think that applies to industry, that applies to the public sector, that applies to pretty much everyone. Let me give you an example of a particularly interesting new innovation. So Acciona, the large water utility in Spain, and they actually use drones to monitor the sweetwater shrimp population in their canals and in their water network. And then they use AVEVA's predictive analytics and the overall industrial intelligence that we provide to predict algae blooms, harmful algae blooms, that they then of course avoid having, and as a result are able to bring clean water to their people. I think this is one example of where you use AI, predictive analytics, so the capabilities that we have, drones, and that bring that together in a way that previously wasn't done.
Casper Hertzberg in London, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Our thanks too to Arti and Lisa here in Davos. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, Andrew.
The AVEVA mission is to demonstrate to industries wading through the challenges of climate change, technology disruption and economic uncertainty what progress can look like, to prove that sustainability and profitability belong hand in hand. It's about collaboration, partnerships and deploying digital innovation at the heart of the resilient industries of tomorrow.